There's just not a moment to think of anything else. Getting the 3 dogs into the back of the SUV and throwing the few things we could grab into the back seat and getting in there, that was it. But as we started driving out, I could immediately see that the neighbors' houses were all in flames. The smoke was so thick at that point, and the burning embers were this big and blowing 50 miles an hour, and we're going 2 miles an hour down the road. I couldn't see the pavement or anything, and so she had to look out the passenger side to see the edge, while I looked out the driver's side to see the edge. There was no use really looking forward because you couldn't see anything. So we're going 2 miles an hour to get out. We later learned that one of our neighbors had died before she got to Marquess Springs Road by going off the edge of this road into a deep ditch, and that we had driven past that wreckage without even seeing it or knowing anything like that had happened. We got right past Reevely Road, and there was a woman, I would guess in her mid to late 70s, walking down the road, completely dressed in black, carrying 2 small black dogs. She gets in. So now we have 3 people and 5 dogs in the car. We're heading down Marquess Springs Road, and we see a young man, I'd say in his 20s, wearing nothing but a t-shirt, literally naked from the waist down, waving his arms desperately for help. And the 3 of us begin to talk about what are our choices here. There's clearly no room for him in the car. Do we stop and tell him? Is there a way he can get on the roof of the car or something? And our decision was, if he looks down the road towards Marquess Springs Road, he'll see that it's darker up there, that the flames aren't burning things there yet, and the embers aren't even blowing there yet. He just needs to turn and run. So we made that decision to drive past him. And we continue on, get down to Marquess Springs Road, and what we wanted to do was get on 101, but the police at that point had closed that intersection, would not let us cross Old Redwood Highway. There were 4 cars stopped ahead of us, and I could see they were waving everybody either to the left or the right. So while we're waiting, I start thinking again about the guy up the road. I put the car in park and get out and walk up to the officer and say, "Officer, there's a young man in mortal danger just up the road." And he goes, "Sir, we can't help anybody in mortal danger right now. Please get back in your car."
Santa Rosa, California, a city of 200,000, is the northern anchor of the San Francisco Bay Area. The largest city between San Francisco and Portland, Oregon, Santa Rosa is renowned as a wine and food destination, a technology hub, and a retirement mecca. Santa Rosa was the home of famed botanist Luther Burbank, whose many experimental gardens dot the area. Charles Schulz, the beloved creator of Peanuts, also called Santa Rosa home. At 9:43 p.m. on October 8, 2017, a hot and windy Sunday night, as the city of Santa Rosa slept, fire started in a huge field of dry grass 12 miles northeast of town. Starved by years of drought, the parched straw was a waiting tinderbox of deadly fuel. Stoked by unusually powerful winds, the fire rapidly blew into a massive inferno. With only scant warning, all available area firefighting crews scrambled into action. Driven by sustained hurricane-force winds of 85 miles per hour and gusts clocked as high as 105 miles per hour, the highest wind speeds ever recorded in the area.
Oh my God, dude, we can't.
Owing to the size, speed, and ferocity of the blaze,
God,
the situation quickly became dire.
You're gonna have to cut to the left. That's all.
Open the gate. Open the gate.
I can't breathe. blow by. Just let it blow by. I'm gonna breathe, dude. We'll be all right. We got this.
At 11:58 p.m., Santa Rosa Fire Chief Tony Gosner made a difficult decision. Sensing impending disaster, Gosner ordered all firefighters to stop battling the blaze and, joined by sheriff deputies, focus every effort on evacuating as many people as possible from the path of the fire.
Because it's coming up Cross Creek and it's coming up pretty hard, and it was like all we can do is evacuate. It's like get everyone out ahead of this fire, and when the fire comes through, we'll deal with it. But we gotta get everyone out.
Often, mere moments ahead of the flames, fire and police first responders banged on thousands of doors. Scores of panicked residents, some with their nightclothes on fire, ran for their lives.
Sheriff's office! Sheriff's office! Where you at? Where you at?
Help, right here! Come on! Screw your shoe! Come on, she's disabled.
All right, let me get her feet. Let me get her feet.
Her husband's right behind you.
Sheriff 1, stand for. We're doing a carry out.
Ready?
Hold up. There's a house on fire. Let's go. Oh, you gotta get her up. Okay, hold on. There we go. Okay. Watch your leg.
Sir!
You gotta go!
Get your car!
By midnight, fire deaths had been reported. The first person to perish was Michael Dornbach, 57, a retired longshoreman from Los Angeles who had been visiting friends in the area. Dornbach died attempting to find the keys to his new truck. Other deaths included Carmen Caldenti Perez, 75, who was vacationing near Santa Rosa. Carmen Perez died in the arms of her husband of 57 years, Armando Perez. Huddled in the backyard swimming pool of a rented home, surrounded by flames that melted the poolside furniture, Armando kept his wife alive for hours. Near dawn, however, Carmen stopped breathing. Laying his wife on the steps of the pool, her arms carefully crossed over her chest, Armando Perez walked 2 miles to find firefighters. Other deaths included Christina Hansen, 27, a college student. Christina Hansen died in the wheelchair to which she had been confined since childhood. The advancing conflagration rapidly consumed the outlying neighborhoods of Mark West Springs, Reebly Valley, and Cross Creek. Gathering strength by the minute, at 3 a.m. the hungry blaze roared into Santa Rosa proper. The fire first attacked the upscale 700-home neighborhood of Fountain Grove.
We were watching TV at night, and it was kind of a funny evening because it was way more windy than it usually is. We never get these big winds, and the door was banging outside, so I had to go outside to close the gate, and it felt kind of weird. Really warm, spectacularly warm, and extremely windy. And now I would say like foreboding almost. There was this truck going around the neighborhood. It was, I think, a police truck with like a megaphone, not very loud, just kind of saying, evacuate immediately, go to Finley Community Center. And so we just grabbed the kids, hopped in a car. Outside was all smoking. We didn't see any flames. It was just full of smoke. Everybody, leaving their garages and trying to hurry out. So we just grabbed one car. I grabbed a few granola bars and water for the kids, since I thought, maybe we're gonna have to spend the night somewhere. And that's it, in my shorts and whatever I wore. Back then, I thought, okay, there's a fire station like not even half a mile from us, so we'll be fine. There just must be a neighborhood fire, right? But let's just get out of here because, it's just, the smoke was sort of concerning. And
as I left the Lark Field Station, there was 2 cars in the intersection on fire, and it's like, well, that's not right, and there's no smoke, there's no, it's quiet for the most part, and it's like, well, what is going on? It seemed like, maybe 15 minutes, and the wind just came down through Santa Rosa to the point where, the hatch on my command vehicle was slamming up and down, and so you're kind of holding it up, and the wind's blowing paper, and it's like, holy smokes, man, where'd this wind come from?
Anyway, I'm standing in my front yard, and there's just smoke everywhere. And so I got dressed, got in my car, work car, got a patrol car radio in it. I turned the radio on right away to hear what was going on, and it was frantic. Something you don't hear on a police radio very often, right? I mean, it was non-stop communication. Deputies running and telling people, okay, I'm at this corner, I need somebody to catch these houses here. I could hear they were evacuating people everywhere.
Copy. We all have to evacuate the hill, so we're coming off now.
But I knew it was really serious just from the radio traffic alone. In the first 30 seconds, I could tell things were bad. As time went by, I was processing how big this was and how bad things could be, right?
With power lines down, cell phone and cable towers incinerated, only one form of mass communication remained available. Local radio station KSRO swung into action.
About 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up when there was a little buzzer on one of my on my radio that indicates that the power had failed. And I wake up and I'm looking and I see no lights on the normal things I see lights on, and I thought, well, maybe the windstorm caused that. Then I smell smoke. Not intense, but very definitely a smell of smoke. And I thought, boy, that's not a good combination. I get up, I go to my front door, and I open it up, and I saw nothing but orange and red in front of me. And at that point, the adrenaline kicked in, and it's just like, I got to get out of here. And there's only one place for me to go, and that's my radio station. And I have the only all-news radio station in the community. I turn it on, expecting to hear an overnight satellite show that we typically have on the air, and I heard my news director on the air. 2:15 in the morning. Her shift doesn't begin until 6 a.m. And the first thought is, thank goodness she got in. She was alerted before me, and she got into the radio station and wiped off the satellite programming and took us live and local, which is the most important thing.
And when I walked in about quarter after midnight, Mike DeWald, producer at KSRO, was already in his chair, and he had been there about 15 minutes. So between the two of us, we, stood across from each other, across the board, and said, "Are you ready?"
KSRO interrupts this program for a breaking news update from the KSRO newsroom.
Good morning. It is 1:05 Monday morning. I'm Pat Kerrigan in the KSRO newsroom, and the North Bay is on fire at this hour. There are all kinds of fires. No matter where you are, you're probably going to smell smoke today because of these fires. If you are in an area where you see any kind of red sky, anything like that, best news is to get out.
KSRO was more than a radio station. It was kind of like a public conduit to safety, to ease anxiety, to be a security blanket, essentially, as well as providing moment-to-moment, life-saving information. But as I talked to many of my listeners, the feedback I got was remarkably similar. The feedback was, oh my gosh, 2 o'clock in the morning, I realized we had to run. I didn't know what was going on. My electricity was off. My cable television was dead. My cellular wouldn't work because the phone poles had melted. And people were discovering that they had an old radio sitting somewhere that they had to refresh the batteries on, or they would sit in their car in their driveway and they would listen. And that was their lifeline. And that was such a statement as to how important local community radio is. And it made me very proud to be a broadcaster at that moment.
I kept going into the back lot because the fire was coming on the radio. You know, I kept hearing the fire come, and the sheriff's office was in danger. They were evacuating Kaiser. The Journeys Inn mobile home park was on fire. So our dispatch center and our command and control structures in that building. So we were worried about having to evacuate the sheriff's office. So I kept going outside, and when I was doing that, deputies were coming in because they were clearing out Mark West and coming in to get supplies. And I was standing with one of them who's telling me, that guy lost his house, that guy lost his house, that guy lost his house. So it was hitting me that we got deputies at work right now. Their house is burned while they were working, and they're up rescuing people.
In the beginning, I think we all were stunned, bewildered, and trying to get a handle on what was happening in our community, in our county. And from that point on, our broadcast consisted of official after official after official, you know, coming on the air with us.
It's 2:31 at KSRO. We break in at this point with the KSRO news team, and on the live line is Sonoma County Supervisor James Gore.
Well, you know, as you said, 60 fires throughout Sonoma County. You know, my district of northern Sonoma County has just been decimated. My heart prayers go out to the families in Larkfield, Wickiup. From what I hear, I can't confirm all these, but I do know that the Larkfield Center has been burnt down in much of those neighborhoods. I have actually heard from somebody that the Luther Burbank Center and Cardinal Newman as well. And I just talked to a woman whose parents are actually up in Geyserville. They're actually in their pond with a fire around them in the mountains, waiting for a helicopter to try and get in there and get them. So I was on 911 dispatch trying to call. So this is, as we all know, this is as serious as it gets.
Within an hour, Fountain Grove and the adjacent areas of Sleepy Hollow, Larkfield, and Wickiup were decimated. With sustained heat of 3,000 degrees, street signs evaporated, glass melted, and molten aluminum from boiling wheel rims flowed in the streets. In addition to 1,000 homes, nearby restaurants, grand hotels, historic wineries, schools, businesses, large and small, senior centers, mobile home parks, and public buildings burned to the ground. 2 of Santa Rosa's 3 hospitals, Kaiser and Sutter Regional, were surrounded by mountains of flame. The Inferno next reached a bluff atop the 6-lane US 101 highway, where, as if shot from a cannon, the massive blaze hurtled the freeway and exploded into the nearby 2,000-home Coffee Park neighborhood.
Yeah, we got the call around 5 in the morning, and it was a request for mutual aid, and it was a request for immediate aid. They wanted us on the road as quickly as we could do that. And initially, we were under the impression that we were headed up to Santa Rosa to help out with a grass fire, with a fire that was in the wildland area that surrounds the wine country. And as we got closer to the city of Santa Rosa, we started seeing fire on the ridge lines, and it was pretty big amount of fire. You know, we didn't anticipate that there'd be that volume of flame. When we saw the structures on fire, when we rolled into the city, we realized that this was not a normal wildland fire. This was something that had gone from what normally affects brush, trees, terrain, houses that are built out into the mountains. This is something that had come into the city. We had been asked to meet up with other strike teams, with other fire departments in a safe place where we could be given our assignments. And that safe place was determined to be the Kmart parking lot. When we got there, the entire Kmart, the 100,000 square foot building, was entirely engulfed in flames. At that point, we realized that this thing we already knew this wasn't a normal fire. But that completely threw us off. And at that point, you realize there is no script for fighting this kind of a fire. We've come up to help out with a grass fire. We've been told to stage at the Kmart. The Kmart is completely in flames. Where do we go from here? We pressed further into the city. At that point, we found fast food places on fire, gas stations on fire. It almost seemed like, where is this going to end? Where are we going to be able to find a place to make a difference? When we initially rolled into Coffee Park, because I'm not super familiar with the area, we found ourselves looking out across a terrain that had no houses, a terrain that had no structures, a terrain that had small fires here and there. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. There's a field that we're looking at, and that field has what looks like campfires here and there. And it wasn't until after a few moments that I realized that this was where a subdivision had previously been, and it had burned to the ground. And that was probably the biggest shock for all of us, in the fire engine at that time. We're used to seeing houses on fire. We're used to seeing even several houses on fire, but to see block after block after block of houses that had been vaporized, and that's really what happened. These houses were completely vaporized. We were sort of stunned at first, and we kept pressing forward, thinking that, okay, at some point we're going to have to arrive at a place in the subdivision where there's still some houses that are standing, still some houses that we can save. And we went block after block after block, over a mile of homes that had been burned to the ground. The first thing we thought of was, okay, where are we going to find a place to make a stand? Then it started dawning on us that these were houses that just several hours ago had thousands of families living in them that had gone to bed with no expectation other than they'd get a good night's sleep and wake up the next morning. And we started thinking, how many of those people didn't get out? How many people still need to be rescued, and how do we even do that in this kind of an environment? We had a lot of time to think about things as we're driving through this subdivision that's burned down. We were looking at these homes that I can only imagine people had 5 minutes or less to gather their family and everything that's important in their life to them and leave. And I thought about my house and if I had 5 minutes or less, what would I grab? What's important to me? So we actually talked about that in the cab of the fire engine. All the things that we were seeing that burnt to ash. It was everything from, family heirlooms, report cards, wedding photos, all the things that are important to a family, all the things that were important to thousands of families. They were gone.
There must be houses at some point that are still salvageable. Well, you can sure feel that heat. How's these poles looking here?
My house was saved by Berkeley Fire Station number 6. And I found this out because about a day after the fire, or 2 days after, a workmate of mine, Kathy, sent me a link to a video she had seen on the internet. And she said, watch this video because I think this is your house. And so I watched, and about the 8th minute or so, 7.5, 8 minutes in, the firefighter put his phone in his pocket, and the video goes black, and you hear the audio with a chainsaw or drilling through what was my fence. And at the end of the video, I took notice of the fire engine, and it said Berkeley Fire Station number 6.
Well, once you get to Findlay, you say, wow, this is not just us. There's, thousands of people. And then you talk to people and, you realize they've been evacuated from Mark Springs. But when we're in Findlay, you saw like this caravan of cars inching along, and you realize there's got to be huge. I mean, where are all these people coming from? And this was kind of the coffee park, I guess, evacuees.
And so we just went from phone call to phone call, and interspersed with the evacuations, which, by 1:30 in the morning, shelters were beginning to spring up. The fairgrounds was opening up, the Veterans Building, many more. So that when we began to do this rollout of evacuations throughout the county, we were able to tell people exactly where to go.
It is 6:45 at KSRO. On the KSRO live line with us is Santa Rosa Mayor Chris Coursey. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Pat. How are you?
It's hard to imagine how the scope of this series of fires keeps getting larger. It's an astounding day.
Pretty unbelievable, and it continues to get worse. I am a little bit fearful about what we see when the sun comes up.
Well, we read a lot about Buddhism for a while, and I studied Buddhism, and there's this lessons of impermanence, and you kind of contemplate what you're supposed to, meditate and contemplate. So what is it, how would you feel if you lose everything, Just imagine, it's all impermanent, you're going to lose it at some point. And it's an interesting practice. But if it really happens, it's different if it's real in real life. When it kind of hits you in literally like in 1 second, because we learned we got a text saying, okay, somebody went to our neighborhood and every single house is destroyed. Until then, we thought, maybe our neighborhoods were spared, maybe the firefighters, stopped it. That was like in the morning when we found that out, and it's kind of pulls the rug out under you a little bit. It's like you kind of gasp for air, like this. It's real, it's all gone, whatever we had. So it was hard on the kids first, because they cried and they were very sad. then you start going through the list of things that you think you're really gonna miss, which is, you know, all the personal stuff. You realize, oh my, we never made a backup of this. So, you know, we didn't have basically any pictures. I grabbed one laptop. So you think about all the personal stuff, all the kids' pictures that you lose, of course, and all their drawings and artwork, and you know, all the big stuff is not a big deal because it's all replaceable.
Well, you know, it's hard to tell people, even when you talk to people. So I have talked to a lot of people, and they, can I come up? And come on up. And then when they get done, it's like, oh my God, I had no idea. I mean, I saw the news reports, I talked to you, but it didn't make sense until I actually drove through there, right? So it's hard for people to comprehend, and especially in Santa Rosa, you know, the human species is such as, you know, it's not gonna happen here. It's not gonna happen to us. Well, guess what? It did happen here. It did happen to us, and it ran through us pretty hard. There's just a lot of things that you have to get done. You got to prioritize, and our mission is to save lives and property, and you can't do that all the time. So that's hard. That weighs. As much as we did, as hard as we tried, we threw everything we had at it, trying to get people out of the way. You know, that's hard.
Chief Gosner's decision to evacuate the town rather than fight the fire saved hundreds, if not thousands, of lives.
When the sheriff began releasing the number of missing people in Sonoma County, the number was over 2,000 to begin with. Now, he would be the first one to say, and he did, you know, don't get attached to that figure because, you know, so many forms of communication are not working. It's just a matter of people being able to get in touch. But when I first heard that figure, knowing what I knew at that point about the scope and the severity of the fires, I thought, oh my God, most of those people are dead. You know? And thank God that didn't turn out to be true. You know? But it could have been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds were it not for this being what I love to refer to as a community of heroes.
I've been a cop for almost 30 years now, and I've seen true heroic work on the street many times. Not every day, but many times. True compassion, true caring from cops. And nobody gets to see that because they're just not out there working. It's just another event, right? And I've always loved that about this job because that's just what they do. And I say in this event, it gave a lot of people stepped up at once, and people got a chance to see it. And they got a chance to see it because of how severe this was and the stage it put us on. And they got a chance to see it because we tried to show them too a little bit, share with them what was going on out there. But really they interacted with so many people that people saw what deputies do and what firefighters do and what ambulance drivers do and what their neighbors did for them. And it was quite rewarding to see everybody come together and get the job done. It was the proudest moment of my career. I actually think that the level of cooperation and how people came together to work together during the fires was unbelievable.
When I could not help my emotion getting the best of me was sitting next to Fire Chief Tony Gosner. And we were talking about what kinds of efforts miraculous, heroic people were making, whether they had a uniform on or they didn't. And he started talking to me about the 911 dispatchers. If you want to understand heroism to me Tony describing in those first few hours, those dispatchers being on the line with people in trouble and people trapped. And those dispatchers, even after they were passed a note from their superiors that help wasn't going to get there on time, they stayed on the phone until the line went dead.
On the night of October 8, 2017, the worst disaster in California history struck the city of Santa Rosa. Within the matter of only a few short hours, huge sections of the city lay in charred ruins. It looks like a nuclear bomb went off, a Coffee Park resident said, like Hiroshima. Before it was over, fire had consumed 7,000 homes, 100-plus businesses, and 43 people. Overnight, 102,000 people became fire refugees. Amid choking black smoke, entire communities were evacuated to 74 hastily constructed shelters. Thousands fled to nearby beaches, sleeping in the sand. Others simply collapsed by the side of the road. An epic humanitarian crisis loomed. And then a remarkable thing happened. The citizens of Santa Rosa took matters into their own hands. Churches flung open their doors. Private homes welcomed total strangers. Restaurants served free food. Stores moved their racks into the streets. High school students bought school clothes for needy classmates. And despite the loss of 2 hospitals, medical care was provided, often by doctors and nurses without homes. During our city's most desperate hour, with electricity, cell phones, and cable TV knocked out, only one form of communication remained available. Local AM station KSRO provided a 24-hour stream of up-to-the-minute life-saving information. News anchor Pat Kerrigan was the constant voice of calm and hope for an entire suffering city. My name is Steven Seeger. I'm the producer and director of this film. I live in Santa Rosa, California. On that awful October night, with flames surrounding our neighborhood, my family did what everyone did. Clutching our pets, we ran for our lives. During that flight, I knew this story had to be told, and it had to be told by someone who'd lived it, someone who'd breathed the smoke and felt the flames. That October night, the people of Santa Rosa were traumatized and scarred, and many here will carry those scars for life. It was the worst disaster in California history, the worst fire in modern American history, but we survived the hellish flaming onslaught. Although badly bent, we were not broken. Much more needs to be done. The effects of this disaster will be felt here for decades. But for now, from Santa Rosa, know this: we are here and we are strong.